Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Monday, June the 13th. I'm Zach Ewing with Jim Derry. We are the bet.NOLA.com crew here to take you through the sports betting weekend that was, and perhaps most notably the things yet to come, including Game 5 of the NBA Finals tonight, Jim, the U.S. Open later this week, the Stanley Cup Final starts this week. The sports calendar is such that there's just never a slow moment anymore.
Not for us. There's always something to bet on, that's for sure. And we'll be talking about all the things that you can bet on. We're going to have I know you're going to introduce Trey Wingo in a little while. We're going to have a U.S. Open preview and datitude on Wednesday with Uncle Big Nick. And we finally had a really good weekend with our PGA preview. And so I'm looking forward to golf this week and all the things that go with it. And, of course, we've got the NBA Finals, and it's not just because it's super hot outside, but you're sweating a little bit more than you were a few days ago.
A little more than I was, for sure. But I have to say, to your point, Trey Wingo he'll talk NBA with us, but also U.S. Open. He's a big golf guy. We're big golf guys. If you've never bet on golf before, it is a game changer. It makes it so fun. It makes it so much fun. And the U.S. Open will be so much fun. And so if you are looking to start a sports betting account and sort of dip your toes into it and see what it's like, perfect opportunity this weekend. And for new Caesars Sportsbook customers, your first bet is insured up to $1,500. That's right. A risk-free bet, anything up from $1 to $1,500. If you lose, you get that money back as an account bonus, and you can try again on something else. So you can try on tonight's NBA game. If it doesn't work out, save it for Game 6 on Thursday, or save it for the U.S. Open, or anything else. You save it for football season, for that matter. And so to take advantage of that, go to NOLA.com/Caesars. And that is a good segue to get into the NBA Finals. And
Zach, also, before people should know that we are going to talk football a little bit later in the show. Saints. So a little news around the Saints today. So we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So just to let people know.
Yeah, absolutely. When we'll ask Trey Wingo his opinion, as we always do, of the Saints' ongoing offseason. But we do want to start here just for another 5 minutes or so. We'll talk some NBA Finals before we get Trey in about 7 or 8 minutes here. Game 5 is tonight. It's at 8 o'clock on ABC. The series is tied at 2. We shift back to San Francisco, and so we shift back to the Warriors being favored. It's 3.5 at some books. It was 3.5 at Caesars most of the weekend. It ticked up to 4, I think, late last night. But interestingly, the money line didn't move. Only the point spread did.
It's still 3.5 at some places. So you can shop and look around if you want to. If you like the Warriors, if you like the Celtics, then obviously you want the 4 points. But, Zach, I mean, really, has the spread even mattered in this series? Really, I think it's pretty much whoever wins the game covers. That's how it's been.
It sure seems like that. Haven't had a close game yet. I mean, Game 4 was close until the last 5 minutes. Game 1 was close until the last 6 minutes. And then the Warriors in Game 4 and the Celtics in Game 1 went on big runs to end the game. We haven't had I guess the other night it was briefly a 3-point game with 2.5 minutes left. Boston, they only hit one shot the last 5 minutes. It was a 3 to cut the lead to 100-97 with 2.5 minutes left. That's as much drama as we've had. And then Curry came down and hit some ridiculous shot, as he did all night. And it was quickly like a 7-point lead again, and that was that. So it was like we haven't had that drama yet. And it still kind of feels like we're going to get it, whether it's tonight or Thursday night or Game 7. It's been a close series. It just hasn't been close in one game.
I mean, I only think you think that because that's the way it's supposed to be, right? I mean, you keep feeling like you're going to get one, and you haven't so far. So, I mean, if history tells us anything, that it's not going to be that way. I mean, it's the human mind expecting drama when there hasn't really been any. I mean, the only drama, like you say, is in the series itself, and it's 2-2. So whether we get a close call, and if the Warriors win by and don't cover, I mean, I think at some point you're going to see that maybe, but I mean, you can't count on it. So I think tonight, and I'll say this, I mean, it's very odd to be this far into a series and not feel any differently if you liked a certain team before the series started to now. I don't think there's anything that it would change anyone's mind thus far. So I think that's where we are right now.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it feels like game one did. I mean, it feels like you felt
Yeah.
going into game one where you're not quite sure what's going to happen. And to me, here's the big wild card. And it's the Celtics have had this strategy defensively of let's shut everybody else down and let's make Steph Curry hit tough shots.
Yeah.
Maybe a questionable strategy, and he's hit them. And he's playing amazing. He shot 49% from 3-point range. He had 43 points the other night. At the same time, he kind of disappeared in the fourth quarter of game one. He kind of disappeared in the fourth quarter of game three. So it's hard to say, like, is that strategy working?
Yeah, Zach, it's hard too because it's not like you can bet against Steph, right? It's like any other player. You say he can't continue this streak of shooting 49% from three, but you can't really say that with Steph because he could. So, I mean, it's not like your average Joe. I mean, and that's the tough part if you're trying to handicap either way, really. I mean, you can't say that he's not going to continue the 50%, but at the same time, you can't bet Golden State because you think he's going to continue it. So, really, to me, whatever your original analysis is, I think that's kind of what you stick with. And whether you bet it game by game or if you've already bet the series, you haven't. If you like the Celtics and you haven't bet a ton on them, maybe now's the time to bet more on the Celtics because you're getting a good price. If the Celtics win tonight, obviously those odds are going to switch again. You're going to have weird odds again. And conversely, if you like Golden State and you don't think you bet enough on them, I think you kind of just have to go game by game at this point.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like if you look at the total number of bets versus the percentage of dollars on that usually can give you a clue as to where the sharp money is. Well, on the spread, the sharp money is on Golden State tonight, but on the money line, it's on Boston. And so it's just like what you said is if you like Boston tonight, you like them to just win the game, not just cover. And if you like Golden State, you like them to not just win the game, but also cover the four. So it's difficult. I mean, I will say this. The Celtics have held Golden State to 108, 100, or no, I'm sorry, it was 108, 107, 100, and then 107 again. That's 105 points per game. If they keep that up, that's what they want. I mean, that's acceptable. The problem for Boston has been they haven't done a good enough job on the offensive end. Jason Tatum has been subpar. I don't know if his shoulder is still hurting him. They've missed a lot of shots around the basket. And so I don't know, that's
but Jaylen Brown's been outstanding. So I mean, it's you look at who hit and miss and who's hitting, and Horford's been all over the place. He's been great at times and he's stunk at times. So I mean, you just don't know what you're getting with the Celtics, and I think you do know what you get with the Warriors. That's why I think there's a slight advantage, and I'm not changing my analysis. I know you aren't changing yours either. So we're on opposite sides of the fence here, and I think tonight says it all. I really believe that whoever wins tonight wins, and not just because they have a major advantage.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they would. The Celtics, if they lose, they have game 6 at home, maybe can force a game 7. We know how difficult that is for a road team. But yeah, you can't. I mean, they've had a 97-point performance on Friday night and then an 88-point performance in game 2. You can't do that in today's NBA. Certainly not against the Warriors. Over. Yeah, you got to be better. And they go through these stretches where there's turnovers, missed layups, they miss free throws. I mean, and when they're good enough, but they just haven't been good often enough yet. Let's bring on Trey Wingo and ask his opinion about that and get into a little U.S. Open as well. Trey, how are you today?
Doing well, guys. Zach, Jim, good to see you guys. What's going on, man?
Not much. It is hotter than blazes down here in Louisiana. I'm sure it's much nicer where you are.
Yes, I'm not going to lie to you. It is quite lovely here. The trade winds are blowing, and it's about 80 degrees, low humidity, and we're ready to roll. Well, let's talk a little stuff, man. Let's go. Let's get it going on behalf of Caesars here.
We're in air conditioning. We're okay. Okay. We're going to start with the NBA Finals because Game 5 tonight.
Yeah.
You may have just heard us talking. I mean, to me, the key to this series right now is can Boston get its stuff together offensively, because defensively they've been okay. As good as Curry has been, they've been okay. Where do you see this going?
Well, look, there was a complete collapse in game 1 that allowed the Celtics to steal the game in the fourth quarter. And let me be clear. I don't want to say steal, but they out-warriored the Warriors in that fourth quarter of game 1. And that's sort of been the whole series, in my opinion, because if the Warriors had just been able to close out game one, we could be looking at a championship game tonight. So look, the Celtics are a deeper team. We all understand that. We know that. But at the end of the day, I do believe that this Warriors team is going to find a way to get it done. And I think they take back the win tonight that they let slip away in game one.
One interesting market at Caesars on this is you can bet correct score. Sometimes there's more value here than there is in series betting. If the Warriors win tonight, do they have the momentum? Our Spencer Urquhart was on here the other day. Warriors in 6 was plus 800, and he said, "I'd go bet that." I said no, but now it's plus 290.
Well, Golden State is 10-1 straight up at 8-3 against the spread at home this postseason, right? So that one sort of game one lapse was a real outlier. This is why I do feel strongly that I think Golden State's going to get it done tonight. It's funny because they're getting it done with nothing from Draymond, right? Let's just be honest about that. I think he has more fouls than points in this series. I think he has 15 points and 17 fouls, or 17 points and 15. Either way, it ain't good. And yet here they are in a position to go up, 3-2. So I think that they will get it done. I think their postseason home pedigree and resume shows up tonight, and I think it leads them one step closer to yet another title.
Playing Zach's devil's advocate, because he loves to throw this out about how good the Celtics have been on the road. Does that influence you at all? Because if there's any team that has been just as good on the road as they have been at home, it has certainly been the Boston Celtics. And we know, not just because they went on fire at the end of game one, but we know that they can win on the road.
Well, it's not only that. The other thing that's interesting about Boston in this postseason is that they're 7-0 following a loss in the playoffs this year. They've never dropped 2 in a row. But there's something to be said for championship pedigree, right? And there are players on that Golden State team that know how to sniff it out. Like it's like, for example, and we'll segue into golf. It's not easy. It's much less difficult to lead a major Thursday or Friday, and then you wake up Saturday morning and you realize, holy crap, I'm 2 rounds away from winning this thing. Like the list of no-name, who the hell are these golfers that had a lead going into a major on a Saturday is completely different than the guys who end up winning on Sunday. And there's not a lot of championship experience in Boston right now. Golden State has that pedigree. They know what it takes. They have guys that they can rely on to push them over the edge. And I think that's going to be a big part of this.
Our friend Uncle Big Nick says, ask Mito. That's a low blow there. That was the PGA Championship. Mito Pereira actually did a pretty good job holding on all the way.
It wasn't even Mito. I mean, like Billy Andrade once had the lead after 36 holes at a PGA Championship, but Tiger ended up winning by 7. You know what I mean? It's not just Mito Pereira. The list is incredible. I mean, Dr. Gill, what was his name? Led the U.S. Open in 92 and got to 10 under. First player ever to get to 10 under par halfway through his round on Saturday and just imploded. And that was the year Tom Kite went on to win on those wild wins at Pebble Beach in 92. So it's not just Mito Pereira, although Mito is the most recent example. There's a lot of guys that there's putting yourself in contention, and there's putting yourself. Dr. Gil Morgan, thank you, that's what it was.
Yeah.
There's guys that put themselves in contention, and there's guys that are closers and they're winners. And I think Golden State has a massive edge in that department in the NBA Finals.
Well, let's use that segue. Go ahead, Jim.
No, I was going to ask.
Let's use that.
Yeah, it is a good segue.
Somebody say something.
This damn reality world that we live in, where we're talking a second behind each other, and it happens on major networks. It happens everywhere because we're all from our home using the damn internet. So, but my question, Trey, is we talked about it before. I wanted to ask you about Steph before we go into golf, and I know we're going to do that. But Steph, with anybody else, you say, okay, shooting 49%. That can't last, but with Steph, it can last. So, I mean, it's hard to predict either way because you really don't know whether he's going to continue the fire because he's the one guy that can do it.
Well, not only that, but after the injury in Game 3, and there was so much speculation, will he play? What he did in Game 4. That's sort of what I'm talking about here, right? And remember, Steph Curry, for all the things that he's done, he has never been an NBA Finals MVP, and you see the odds there on the screen right now at Caesars Sportsbook. He's the clear leader at -150. I think he knows that. I think he hears that. Like, he knows that Michael Jordan was 6 for 6 in NBA Finals MVPs. He knows that Michael Jordan's Bulls never even got to a 7th game in the NBA Finals. He knows what LeBron has on his resume. He knows what Kevin Durant has on his resume. I think he knows that this is the one thing that's missing from – look, if anybody had any doubts about his greatness and his legacy, I think that this is the thing where he can say, all right, now what? Now what are you going to knock me for? I'm gonna take home the NBA Finals MVP. He knows that if he gets that, there's nothing anybody can say to him anymore.
One more quick question, Mr. Caesar's ambassador. I have to ask you. Steph Curry, minus 150 to win the MVP, but yet Golden State, was it minus 140 or minus 145 to win it outright? You got to explain that one to me.
Listen,
there it is.
Let me tell you something. There it is. Let me tell you something real quick. I do not set the odds. I just try to.
I know that.
Okay. So
I just wanted
that one's above my pay grade to the great deep thinkers
right.
that run the Caesar Sportsbook machine.
The only thing I'll say there is if he goes for 30 a game, but they lose in 7.
Yeah.
Could he win it on the losing team? I mean, it doesn't happen often, but I suppose it's possible.
It's possible. It's the rarest of things. It's only happened once in the Super Bowl. Chuck Howley was the MVP of Super Bowl 5 for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep,
and then
I was going to say
16
Super Bowl
13 to the Baltimore Colts.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into some golf.
It's not going to happen, but we'll
by the way,
that later.
Here's the thing. My one complaint about these NBA Finals: if they go 7 games, the flipping U.S. Open will begin and end before the NBA Final. I mean, it's going to be 18 days where it's too long. It's too many days off.
Well, yeah, but you know how that goes. They want to drag it out to get as much. I mean, I agree with you. It used to be so bad, and we'll move on to golf. I get it. It used to be so bad that they would have days off in between, like 3 days off in between in the same city. It's like, guys, what are we doing? Let's just move it along. Let's get to the process here.
More for the media guys to put on their expense report. That's all.
Correct.
No rhythm at all. But in between, we do get the country club at Brookline to distract us. The U.S. Open begins Thursday morning. Rory, mighty impressive in winning the Canadian Open yesterday over Justin Thomas and Tony Finau, and Sam Burns, I guess, was up there too.
Sure.
Is he a worthy favorite here? Are you surprised he's favored over JT and Scheffler?
I'm surprised. Well, look, obviously what happened over the weekend influences this, right? And Rory shot 8 under to win. So like we know that he loves the final round of the Canadian Open. He's won them back to back, even though there was a 3-year gap in between because of COVID cancellations. At a different course last year, or the last time he won the Canadian Open in 2019, he shot 9 under on Sunday, and on this course he shot 8 under on Sunday to win. So we know like he has been granted temporary Canadian citizenship, for lack of a better term. But how does that translate into the U.S. Open? Because this is going to be a completely different golf course, and we all understand that. Brookline has 5 layers of graduated rough, or 5 layers of grass. There's the fairway, there's the cut, there's the second cut. I mean, it's graduated rough all the way out. And if you're in the deep stuff, you have no chance. The U.S. Open is always the hardest major to win. I mean, like the Masters may be more prestigious, and the PGA has the best field every year. And, the Open Championship is the oldest and probably the most historic in all of golf. But the U.S. Open is the toughest. Anybody will tell you that. It's the toughest test of golf. You don't win a U.S. Open, you survive it. So I don't look at guys who had a bunch of birdies the week before going into it and think automatically they're going to play well at the U.S. Open, because birdies are rare. Pars are what you strive for at a U.S. Open. And so it's a totally different course and a totally different setup of the course and a totally different mindset. That being said, Rory's played really well, and that's why he's the favorite. But honestly, for a guy like Justin Thomas, like Wright Thompson, my former colleague at ESPN, said it best.
Our former colleague as well.
Yeah, there's 2 kinds of golf tournaments, right? The ones you play for money and the majors. So you look for the killers in the majors. You look for the guys who have the ability to grind. And Rory is certainly one of those. Let's be 100% clear. But also have that gleam in their eye that they can get it done. I think, honestly, by not winning at the Canadian Open, Justin Thomas probably improves himself a little bit. Let's take a look at some of those other names there. Scottie Scheffler's there. Scotty's trying to do the double dip, the Masters and U.S. Open. It's only been done 5 other times. The names you've heard of, lastly done by Jordan Spieth in 2015. Before that, it was Tiger Woods in 2002. Before that, it was Jack. Before that, it was Arnie. And before that, it was Ben Hogan. And before that, it was Craig Wood. So the list of players to pull that double dip with the Masters and the U.S. Open is very short and very rare. And Scheffler's game is really built for a U.S. Open. It's not a lot of flash in Scott Scheffler's game. He doesn't wow you with these incredible, like, he's just steady. He's just steady, and he puts the ball where it needs to be. Scheffler, I think, is a really interesting pick. Rahm obviously played great last year as the defending champion at Torrey Pines. How about Will Zalatoris there? All right, you look at Zalatoris. He has 5 top 10s in his last 7 majors, and the 2 that he didn't have a top 10 in those last 7 majors, one he withdrew, and the other one was a cut, I think, at last year's U.S. Open. And there's just something about Zalatoris' game. Like, he finished second at the PGA Championship. His game is also bred for majors, and I think he'd be a really, really interesting play this week. And
Trey, he's one of the young players that really seems to play better in the majors, which I find interesting. He seems to putt better in the majors. I don't know what's going, because his putter is very inconsistent. But one guy I do want to ask you about, and because he hasn't won since the Masters, and oh my God, is Scotty Scheffler. Does he remind you a little bit of what Jordan Spieth was doing, 5 years ago?
Well, it's interesting. He does, and again, Scheffler, he almost won at the Colonial. Sam Burns made that bomb in a playoff. He's won 4 times. It is kind of funny to say, what's wrong with Scotty Scheffler? He hasn't won in a month, or a month and a half. It is kind of crazy. But again, his game is suited to me for majors. His game is suited for U.S. Opens. Like I said, he doesn't flash you to death. He grinds you to death. Like, you go back to the Ryder Cup, the U.S. won at Whistling Straits. Of all the singles matches on Sunday, there was only one match where the higher seeded player in the official world golf rankings was on the Euro side, and that was Jon Rahm and Scotty Scheffler. And Scheffler thumped him. And he didn't even need to thump him. But the cup had essentially been won at that point by the time Scheffler got into closing his match with Rahm. And he went out and thumped him anyway. These are what I'm talking about, killers, okay? These are the guys you look for. The guys that want to step on your neck. The guys that, like, no mercy. Justin Thomas is one of those guys. He has that ability. And now that he's tasted his second one, I think he's looking for a lot more. We also had Xander Schauffele up there at 2,200. I think it was plus 2,200. Listen, he's competed in 5 U.S. Opens. He's top 10 finish in all 5. Here's the list of players that have done that in the history of golf. Xander Schauffele, end of list. No one has ever had 5 straight top 10 finishes in a U.S. Open, and it just so happens to be the first 5 U.S. Opens that Xander Schauffele has played in. Xander Schauffele's game also made for a major. Made for a U.S. Open. He's absolutely a guy I would be very keen on this week.
Let's look at some of the longer odds here. And included in this list is, and this is the elephant in the room, Trey, we probably should address, the live guys. You see Dustin Johnson at 40-1. Phil Mickelson and Kevin Na are real long shots down at 150-1. But that's the backdrop for the DeChambeau, another one. Patrick Reed. That the backdrop for this is sort of this ongoing corporate war, if you will, between the PGA Tour and this Saudi-backed Live Tour.
Well, I'm glad you said that is a corporate war, because I think it's important to point out that's exactly what this is. Look, the PGA Tour is trying to claim the moral high ground here, and let's just pull the plug on that, okay? Like, I understand they feel like their tour is under attack and they're doing whatever they can, but Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner, went on yesterday's broadcast in his impassioned thing with Jim Nantz, and Jim Nantz brought up the 9/11 families listing, calling out these players that are going over there. And Jay Monahan said, when have you ever been embarrassed by being a member of the PGA Tour? Well, the PGA Tour's record with Augusta and the things that went on there for many years, not so great. In 1990, they had to pull the PGA Championship from Shoal Creek because they wouldn't allow any African-American members. I mean, if you really want to pull at that thread, there's a lot of area where the PGA Tour does not come off really great historically in a lot of this. So I don't think that's a battle they want to go in. Oh, by the way, quick Google search. You look at the PGA Tour partners, see how many of them have business in Saudi Arabia. PGA Tour seems to have no problem with taking their money, even though they're in bed with Saudi Arabia. They do business. FedEx does business in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of companies that do business in Saudi Arabia. The PGA Tour should not and cannot win by attacking this morally. They're attacking this monopolistically because they understand that what they built is under attack. And oh, by the way, they built it with a tax-free status, which is also very curious that the NBA had for a lot of years, and they got rid of that because it became problematic. So if the PGA Tour is smart, they need to understand what the battle is and what it isn't, because they'll lose that fight. And I think they need to realize that as much as live what it is and what it isn't, here's what it is for a long time. It's working. More players are going to go. And the PGA Tour better understand pretty quickly that an uneasy peace is a lot better than an all-out war, because nobody's going to win in that situation.
But Trey, you and I have seen throughout our careers, though, different companies, and I'm not just talking about the PGA, not going to mention any names in the media as well, but there have been media companies that have come along and thrown out these giant amounts of money only to find themselves 3 years later in a position to where they need to be bought out by someone like the New York Times to survive, and they're laying off reporters, and it happens. And I'm just using it in the media world because I've seen it with my own colleagues. So I mean, I guess the question is, forget about the hypocrisy. Can LIV, Live Golf, whatever, 54 Golf, whatever you want to call it, can they sustain with the money that they're dishing out to these guys, and will these golfers be begging to come back one day?
Well, I don't think two things. And this is a thing that people need to understand. Live Golf is not looking at this as a business. They're not trying to make money. They're doing something else. They're trying to rebrand themselves. They're trying to use the PIF, the Saudi Public Investment Fund, which, by the way, is $600 billion deep. Yeah. For those that don't know, that's $600,000 million. Okay, that's exactly what it is. It's $600 billion deep. Dustin Johnson, by making the announcement, made more money than Tiger Woods has made his entire career on the PGA Tour, just by saying he's going to play in Live Golf. They wired him a sum that was a larger amount than Tiger Woods has made in every single event he's ever played in. This is not slightly more money.
I guess it's not just about the money, though. The difference.
It has to be. It has to be.
But see, here's the thing.
For these players, it has to be.
If this thing doesn't survive, okay, and this league or whatever it is,
let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. What makes you think it's not going to survive?
Because these things often fail. They fail more often than they succeed. We've seen. Look at the USFL in the 80s.
The USFL doesn't have $600 billion in reserves. Like,
I understand
you need to understand the one thing that Live will never run out of is money. That's never going to be a problem. That is never going to be a problem. And oh, by the way, they're going to get a TV contract at some point. There's going to be a distribution channel besides Facebook and YouTube and their own website. That's going to happen. They have enough stars where there will be eyeballs. And I'll tell you this, I think the idea of the Live Tour is fun. It's 54 holes, it's no cut, and you also have a team element, which I think is really interesting. The only problem is where the money's coming from. Like, if any other entity was trying to start this, people would say, this is really interesting. This is a really good idea. They have some fascinating things. There's just this thing hanging over Live Golf, which is where the money comes from, and it creates all kinds of problems. But where that money comes from, there's a lot more money where that comes from. And it's not going away anytime soon.
What was the movie with Danny DeVito, Somebody Else's Money, where he says nobody ever spends somebody else's money as carefully as he spends his own. And it's, well, nobody else, like, we're talking about somebody else making hundreds of millions of dollars and saying, oh, morally, that's wrong of you to do. But I'll tell you what, if the Live Golf Tour came and told me that I could have $100 million to broadcast their rounds, I'd have to think about it. I'd have to think long and hard about it.
Look, here's the way that the PGA Tour can win. If they can convince all the other majors to not let these guys play. Because like we said, there's tournaments for money and there's the majors. And if there is some sort of sweeping endorsement of because the PGA Tour doesn't control a single major. They don't. The USGA controls the US Open. The PGA of America controls the PGA Championship. The Royal and Ancient controls the Open Championship, and Augusta does whatever the hell they want. Much in the same way, Jim, where, Martha Burke a few years ago, National Organization for Women, was protesting Augusta. You know what Augusta did? They just said, we don't want your sponsorship dollars this year. We're gonna self-fund the tournament. We don't care. The Augusta National people do not do it for money. They do it for Augusta
I guess
National.
my point is, Trey, it's not what I'm saying is, if this thing doesn't succeed, you're talking about golfers who that's the only thing they know and love. And you can talk about, I guess some of them are doing it just for the money. But then if they get blackballed and they can't play golf anymore, then what?
Look, Dustin Johnson was asked that very question after the LIV tournament. And you know what he said? He said, I didn't do this to play more golf. I did it to play less golf.
He'll go play Scrooge McDuck and his millions of dollars is what he'll do.
But I mean, that's the thing that people, like, we all look at these athletes, whatever sport, and we think that this is what they love. For a lot of people, this is what they do. Now, there are people like Jordan and Justin and Rory and Scotty. Look, the PGA Tour is always going to have the best. It's going to be the best competition anywhere. There's not a debate. It's not an opinion. It's not a fact. But there's going to be this other side where these golfers can go, like Pat Perez, okay? By the way, he's never going to factor in a major. I think he's just an interesting guy that's been on tour for a long time. Somebody asked him once in February, "Are you going to join the LIV, the Saudi-based LIV Golf?" His answer in a public forum was bleep. No, I'm not doing that bleep. Well, guess who just signed up for the money? It's like the old line from All the President's Men: follow the money. They took the money. I mean, they can say they're going to grow the game, and all that's fine, and it's wonderful, and it sounds great. But at the end of the day, all they're like, they said, I made the best decision for me and my family. Hashtag, I'm out of the woods forever. I'm good.
It'll be great for guys like Bryson DeChambeau, who's only playing 36 holes a week anyway. So now he gets to play 50.
But that's fascinating, right? Like, to me, of all the guys, like DJ's only 37, right? He was the oldest member of the Ryder Cup. We just saw Phil win at 50. Jack won when he was at 46. People win the majors, and Tiger won at 44 when he was, the 2019 Masters. People are winning well into their 40s and early, and now as late as 50. So you're right. You have to decide: are you willing to never play in those things again? And for a lot of these guys, some of them are wired to be killers, like we talked about, and some of them are really just so good that they have the talent, and maybe they don't want to do it all. Like, one of the reasons Pat Perez decided to sign up was, this way I can make more money and not spend as much time away from my family. Like, it's a thing, and the best competition will always be on the PGA Tour, but this other thing isn't going away. And it sort of reminds me of the NCAA, and we're getting way off base here, but this is a fascinating conversation to me. Like, the NCAA had years to construct a plan about NIL, name, image, and likeness, right? Everybody knew it was an eventuality. And what did the NCAA do? They fought it. Finally got here, and the NCAA said, I don't know what to do. You guys figure it out yourselves. So they hid their head in the sand and fought it instead of embracing the reality of what's to be. And now the NIL is out of the bag. It ain't ever going back. So the PGA Tour needs to decide, how much do you want to fight it, and how much do you want to try and find a way for compromise? Because the LIV people aren't saying anything. They're not saying you can't do this or can't do that. This is on the PGA Tour. Of course, they don't have to. This is their stance. And peace is always better than all-out war. Nobody wins in all-out war. Nobody.
Well, speaking of big money,
they all win there with that money.
Yeah. Speaking of winning big money, here are some guys you can win big money on. I guess, Troy, my question is: the U.S. Open is famously difficult. You talked about it.
Yep.
Are any of these guys worth it when they're going to be going up against great players?
I'll look at some of these guys right off the bat. Keep that screen up there for a second. Tony Finau is a birdie machine. He once made 10 birdies in the second round of the 2018 PGA Championship when he was paired with then Ryder Cup captain Jim Furyk to make sure he got picked on the squad. Spoiler, he did, and then played very well in that loss in France. Tony he shot 64-62 over the weekend at the Canadian Open. I know it's different, but he has 3 top 5s in his last 5 starts on the PGA Tour. Daniel Berger, really, since COVID sort of allowed golf to come back in the summer of 2020. He won at Colonial. He's won a bunch of times. He's interesting. Billy Horschel won at Memorial. He was close at Marion in 2013 and sort of flamed out on Sunday. Connors, the Canadian, very steady, repeatable swing. And those are the kind of guys you look for at a U.S. Open, lather, rinse, repeat. Can you just hit fairways and greens and make an occasional putt? Connors is very much one of those guys. Tommy Fleetwood had that incredible round on Sunday at 2018 at Shinnecock after they sort of altered the course because it was too severe. I'm not sure if Tommy is a guy that has the killer instinct. He does at the Ryder Cup, no question, but we haven't seen that show up yet on tour when everything's on the line. But definitely just looking at that list, the names that jump out to me are Finau, Horschel, Berger, and Connors.
Uncle Big Nick's a big Tommy Fleetwood fan.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Trey, for your boost a few weeks ago with JT and at plus 1,500 and throwing that out there. I couldn't jump on that fast enough. So now it's plus 1,100. I got a bargain, I think. I mean, when I saw that, I'm like, freebie right there.
We put up Schauffele today, a boost for another top 10. It would be a 6 straight top 10. Again, no one ever has done 5. He would be the first to do 6. And we put up Scotty as a boost over the weekend as well to win the Masters and the U.S. Open double dip. Again, it's been done 5 of the times. He would be the 6th. Got a couple more coming up later on this week that I think you'll like too.
Okay. Keep your eye on Caesars Sportsbook, NOLA.com/Caesars. Check out Trey's boosts. All right, Trey, before we move on to the Saints, just for a couple of minutes, call your shot. Who lifts the trophy at Brookline over the weekend?
I think I'm going to go with Will Zalatoris. He's just – look, it's the rarest of rare for a guy to break through and win your first tournament on tour at a major. But you just look at the way he's played in these majors. Like, also a guy who's just built for it, man. He's built for it. And stranger things have happened at Brookline. Francis Ouimet won the Open there in 1913, taking out Harry Vardon and all the big boys from England when they came over. It was in 1988 at Brookline where Curtis Strange won the first of his 2 back-to-back U.S. Open titles. Hadn't been done since Ben Hogan, and now Brooks Koepka did it more recently. Brookline in 1999, the Americans were down 10-6 at the Ryder Cup, came storming back when Justin Leonard made that ridiculous putt on 17 that essentially sealed the cup when JMO missed his attempt to tie the hole. Weird things happen at Brookline. Like, weird things happen. So the idea of like someone like Will Zalatoris finally breaking through seems about on par for what might happen this week at the U.S. Open.
At 2,500, we can't go wrong. I mean, you go throw a couple bucks on it, even if I don't think it's going to happen. That's worth a couple bucks.
All right, I know some people have probably been waiting for Saints talk because that's what we do around here is we wait for Saints talk. We'll throw up the Saints futures odds here for the offseason. The news today that Jim referenced earlier, Will Lutz is medically cleared to return to practice. I don't think a lot of people realize how important. I mean, the Saints lost a lot of close games last year and had kicking nightmares. Yeah. I know he's just a kicker, but that's not a small development either.
No, listen, you never realize how important a kicker is until you need one, right? I mean, that's sort of the way it is. And the Saints not only did go through some kicking issues, they went through every position issue last year. They set a record for the most players ever used in a season. So, again, I said this before and I'll say it again. It all depends on Alvin Kamara's availability. Like, the Saints have potentially a chance to really surprise some people. They believe they can win. They don't go out and sign Jarvis Landry, Tyrann Mathieu if you're in a rebuild. Just don't do that, right? Even if you got him at pennies on the dollar, you just don't do that. So I think the Saints believe if Jameis is ready to roll and Kamara is there for a majority of the season, they believe they're going to be in contention. But again, I need to know how many games Alvin Kamara might miss because of what happened at Vegas at the Pro Bowl. Like, that tells me a lot about what I think about the Saints, because you can game plan for guys, and then Kamara's a guy that can break the game plan, and you have to have someone like that.
Well, obviously the Saints will worry too, Trey, because the word is they brought in David Johnson to work out, and you're talking about retread of retreads. And I mean, so if you're going that far down the rabbit hole, you probably have an inkling that the suspension is looming at some point.
Well, it's exactly for the same reason why the Browns restructured Deshaun Watson's contract to save him, $1.4 million for every game that he is going to be suspended for. So let's just be honest, it is going to happen. So yeah, if Kamara is there for 3/4 of the season, I think the Saints could really surprise a lot of people. But if Kamara's gone for half the season or more, I don't see New Orleans doing a lot.
That is the word from Trey Wingo. Trey, we appreciate your time as always. Come back and see us sometime.
Anytime, guys. Always a pleasure.
Enjoyed it, Trey. Thank you.
That's
Thanks.
Trey Wingo, Chief Trends Officer of Caesar Sportsbook and former ESPN SportsCenter anchor. Always great stuff, especially on golf. A man knows his golf history.
He doesn't. Also, here's the thing I like about Trey. He doesn't hesitate to get in the fray. I mean, we've only talked to him, 4 or 5 times. I had him on Attitude once. He doesn't hesitate to get into the fray with people he doesn't know all that well. He's going to tell you what he thinks. And that's whether I agree with you or not, please at least tell me what you think. And don't just, sugarcoat something. And he doesn't sugarcoat it.
I'm guessing, because we haven't known each other all that long either, by the way, but I fall in that category too, because even in football season, when we really hadn't known each other very long, we got in each other's face a couple times.
Yeah, Mr. 2 points.
Which is
Mr.
good.
4th down.
That's right. What do you think? Speaking of the USFL, that we just got a couple minutes left, a couple things to get to. New Orleans Breakers clinched a spot in the USFL playoffs. Yeah. They're going to Canton, Ohio in a couple of weeks for the Final Four there. They're going to have to beat Birmingham, which they haven't done yet. Although Birmingham finally lost a game, I think I saw yesterday.
Yeah, they lost. So
anyway, they have a
3-point
conversion, Jim. You can choose to go for 3 from the 10-yard line. What do you think about that?
I mean, if you're losing by 9, with under 2 minutes to go, sure, it's great. It keeps you alive. But other than that, I don't see any point of ever trying that. We're going to get into, I'm sure, plenty of philosophical debates before too long.
Yeah, I'm a math guy. Everybody knows that. And my whole argument on 2-point conversions is not that I think you should do them every time, but if you're a good offensive team and you can find an edge by getting 1.2 points per trip down on conversions instead of just 0.95 or whatever it is on extra points, it's worth thinking about. I would be curious to know the percentage on 3-point conversions. My guess is it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20%, which is only 0.6 points per conversion. And so if that's the case, mathematically, like you said, unless you're down 9 in the final 30 seconds and you got to, there's not a whole lot there.
I mean, no one's going to accuse me of being a scholar. I was born and raised in the West Bank. So, but I think that if you brought it, I don't think anyone wanted Albert Einstein to be their football coach. Okay, so not besides the fact that he's dead, but other than that, you take the greatest mathematician in the world from Harvard who knows more than I'll ever know about adding 2 + 2. I mean, you can't. I don't care about these numbers. Stop it already. Stop it already with analytics. Here's a question for you, Mr. Ewing. If you had the choice and you had to pick one, you're the czar of football now. And you have to pick one. You either have to kick, whether it be a punt, field goal, or whatever, every time on 4th down, or you have to go for it every time on 4th down. What are you instituting into your football league? You can't do it. You can't pick and choose. You have to do one.
Rolling the dice, baby. Rolling the dice. Go for it every time.
I knew the answer to that. 4th and 19 on your own one. The hell with it, baby.
That's even easier for me to answer. If you're just making me in charge of a league, that's a hell of a lot more fun. Who
I'd watch LIV golf before I'd watch that football league.
You like punting? Who likes punting?
Sometimes I mean, it's not whether you like punting or not. I mean, I don't love punting, but I also don't like to have the opponent have the ball first 10 on my 25 with 4 minutes to go in a 3-point game. Mr. Analytics.
It would be fantastic if punting was out, because then teams couldn't just run out the clock and say three plays and a punt, right? You'd have to actually try to get a first down to run out the clock, because if you didn't, you'd lose the game.
How about running out the clock to win the game? And in 5 minutes from now, my team just won, and either it's my team and I'm happy because I'm wearing their gear, or B, I bet on them and they won and I got money in my pocket. I'd rather that. Go ahead, kneel on the ball. Run it up the middle. Punt it away.
It's boring. So boring.
It's only June, too. It's only June. I can't wait.
I know.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be great. I know. It is June. A couple of other things this week that are going on. The College World Series starts Friday, I believe. They're down to 10 teams. There's 2 super regionals left today. In fact, I think UConn and Stanford are playing right now. And so these odds were pulled before they started. Well, UConn, you see at the bottom, 45-1, is actually beating Stanford 3-2 in the 4th inning. So long way to go. But these odds probably not available right at the moment, and they will change. And then later tonight, Auburn, the second longest favorite you see, is playing Oregon State in their deciding.
Where's Tennessee on that list?
Tennessee's gone, Jim. Didn't we tell the people
what
not
happened?
to bet on Tennessee?
Yeah. I think we did. I think we told them not to bet on Tennessee.
I gotta, especially it's like plus 130. I mean, just wait. You would have gotten the same price in Omaha. Yeah.
Didn't we tell them that the number 1 seed hadn't won a College World Series? I think it was 1996 or something silly like that. I mean,
I like
my
Texas
son,
A&M, man.
Who has his own house, wasn't even born yet.
I like Texas A&M a lot.
So do I.
They're 8-1. They pitch it, they hit it. And Arkansas, honestly, at 8-1 is not a bad bet either. Texas, I think that price has gotten too low. I liked them last week when they were 10-1. It's just gotten too low. But I will say this, for someone who doesn't really care about college baseball, like if I'm ranking the sports I care about, I would have to go a long way before I got to college baseball. But Tennessee, my God, were they an unlikable team, and it was enjoyable to see them go out. I'm not gonna lie.
I think there's a lot of people who are happy they're going today. And look, to me, college baseball, unless there's really no dominant team in this thing. I mean, and granted, I've only really been following it for like the past 6 weeks because there was so much going on. Didn't have a chance to get into it as much as I would have liked to. But to me, it's almost like rolling the dice. So you might as well take an 8 or a 10-1 shot if you're going to throw some money on it. Why not Notre Dame at 10-1? I know that their odds are probably a little bit inflated because they beat Tennessee, and they probably should be more like 15-1 or something along those lines. But hey, why not? I mean, if they stay hot, it's to me the College World Series is all about who's going to get hot at the right time, and that's the team that wins it because it's not always. I mean, if you look at the 6 LSU national championships, it was because they got hot at the right time, and every single one of those championships, I remember them all, and it all felt like a team of destiny. Like you felt like they were going to win throughout those championships. So I just think it's whoever gets hot, and Notre Dame's kind of got that feel, and so does Texas A&M. I like both of those teams.
And LSU, by the way, has had better teams than some of those championship teams that did not win the championship because sometimes it goes the other way, just like with Tennessee. I will say this with Notre Dame, and again, I'm not an expert here, but they do hit a lot of home runs. That's how they beat Tennessee. That ballpark in Omaha suppresses the home run ball. So you got to have a team that hits line drives and pitches it because the home runs do not come at that new ballpark in Omaha.
I don't know. It's going to be pretty hot in Omaha next week.
That's true. The weather, maybe a few more, but like you see every year, you see 3-2 games, 2-1 games at that thing anymore. The other thing starting this week, starting Wednesday night, the Stanley Cup final in the NHL. It started a little late this year, but they are getting going on Wednesday in Denver. The Avalanche are favored over the Lightning, who are going for a three-peat, which you don't see hardly in any sport. You certainly don't see it in the NHL. I know we don't talk a lot of NHL, but this is a big story. Lightning going for 3 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to like the Avalanche, right? Though, I mean, the way they've been playing throughout, and they've had some goalkeeper issues. But it hasn't seemed to affect them. Edmonton couldn't do anything against them. I'm not convinced with what I've seen from the Lightning, especially. I mean, obviously they came on and got on a roll after the Rangers started semi-fast, but I don't know. I don't. It's going to be tough to beat Colorado here. I'm not sure I'm laying -175, but it might be more of a game-to-game thing.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, listen, it's a contrast in styles. Lightning, great goalkeeping, defensive style. They're going to try to beat you 2-1, 3-2. The Avalanche are going to try to score 6 goals every night, and they will half the time, by the way. But I do think there may be a little bit of actually price inflation on the Lightning, just for people like you and I who look at it and say, "Oh, 3 in a row. Lightning can't be beat." Colorado objectively is the better team if you look at a lot of stats and things. So we'll see. Game 1 Wednesday. I think game 2 is Saturday. So that will be getting going too. And we've got plenty of content for you this week. Jim, you've got Datitude on Wednesday with Uncle Big Nick talking U.S. Open.
Yeah, it's our last week before we go on vacation. So we're going to take a little hiatus after this week is over. Uncle Big Nick coming on Wednesday. It's going to be all U.S. Open. It'll be about a 25 to 30-minute show previewing our takes. And then on Friday, I think it's going to be Jeff Duncan again, but I'm not 100% sure. And we are working on a big guest for the near future. Just a little hint. It may happen if it happens while I'm on vacation. Then we will have a show before we turn the calendar to July. But as of now, not scheduled. But we'll see what happens. It'll be mostly Saints, by the way. It'll be
can't tell you who
Saints.
It is, but it is. Yeah, it's related to the Saints. Also, in between those two podcast episodes, we'll be back with you 4:00 on Thursday live for At the Book, or Jim, Spencer, and Devin will. I'm going to be out of town. And then next Monday for Bayou Bets, also at 4:00, I'll be out of town. But I will be joining that show. I've either got to take my medicine if the Warriors win the NBA Finals, or I've got to take my victory lap if the Celtics win it. We know by now the series will not be over before Thursday night. So you froze for just a second in the drinking position. That was fantastic.
Oh, that was perfect, wasn't it? I gotta get your glasses. My kids have some of those Celtic glasses, I think, that I'm going to wear.
Listen, I'm going to be at my sister's place in Columbus, Ohio next Monday. I've got to find a store in Columbus that sells those things, because if they do win, maybe I'll wait and see how tonight goes before I worry about that. Yeah, it's going to be great. So anyway,
we wore green for you today.
Plenty of content for you after the NBA Finals game tonight, Stanley Cup Final, U.S. Open. Jim's got Datitude Wednesday and Friday. We've got At the Book Thursday. Bayou Bets next Monday. And by the way, almost forgot, Spencer and I have a fantasy roundup tomorrow at 3:30. So talking some off-season fantasy football stuff and a little fantasy baseball as well. And might even throw in a little fantasy golf on that show. 3:30 p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, right here on these same bet.NOLA.com channels. Until then, if you want to get in on the action and you haven't yet, sign up for Caesars Sportsbook, NOLA.com/Caesars. Go ahead. Bet on the Warriors, because guess what? When you lose, you're getting your money back. And you can do the smart thing and bet on the Celtics on Thursday when they win it in 6. So there you go. Did you like how I did that?
I do, but you'd probably be better served to just go bet $1,500 on the Celtics winning the title. I mean, put your one bet on a future.
Yeah. Now, if you win, great. If you lose, you get your money back. You get to try again. NOLA.com/Caesars.
And you get to wear glasses.
And watch a lot of our stuff this week. For our producer, Patrick McGee, for Jim Derry, and our thanks to Trey Wingo joining us today on Bayou Bets. I'm Zach Ewing. Have a good one, everybody.